The president certainly has the greatest and deepest amount of respect for Senator Hatch and his over 4 decades of experience in the Senate. He's particularly thankful for the senator's leadership and massive effort that he played and the role that he played in getting the tax cut and reform package passed. And the president certainly praises his service and is very sad to see Senator Hatch leave and knows that he will certainly be missed.
That's the White House reacting to the news that Utah Senator Orrin Hatch will retire at the end of his term. The announcement fueling speculation Mitt Romney might run for that seat. Eagle-eyed Twitter users noticing that Romney changed his location yesterday from Massachusetts to Utah. Let's bring in Leslie Marshall, radio talk show host and Fox News contributor. Vince Colanese is editorial director for the Daily Caller. So if you're a Utah resident on Twitter, Leslie, does that make you eligible to run from the state of Utah for the U.S. Senate?
Funny, I was looking that up this morning, John, before you asked, and I think it does. Remember that Mitt Romney actually has residences here in California in the San Diego area. He has a residence in Massachusetts, I believe also New Hampshire, as well as Utah. And yes, he would be eligible to run, but I'm not sure that is in his or the Republican Party's best interest. I think actually Mitt Romney running against Donald Trump for president, which he still could do if he runs for Orrin Hatch's seat and could easily win, would give him some momentum. I think that's the bigger fish that he wants to fry. In the Senate, he could become weakened, as we've seen many Republicans, McConnell, Ryan, Graham, who originally spoke out against the president, even fought against the president, ended up going in lockstep with the president and certainly with the party. And I think that's exactly what will happen to Mitt Romney if he becomes a senator and takes Orrin Hatch's seat.
Well, there's a difference, Vince, I guess, between caving in to pressure and simply warming up to maybe a little persuasion. And maybe some of those people that Leslie just mentioned have warmed to this president.
Right. I think there's been a difference in tenor between Republicans who cast themselves as never Trump and those Republicans who ultimately decided, OK, this is the president of the United States. Whether or not I agree with him, I can help him along in his policies. I can help guide him along in the direction that I want to go. And I think people like Marco Rubio have been a good example of people who've attempted to do that. Mitt Romney, at his core right now, he's a politician. He clearly, I think he's generally a good man. He wants to reconcile with the president. I think we saw that despite him declaring any sort of unfitness for office on the part of Donald Trump. By the time it actually got to the presidency, he was open to the idea of becoming his Secretary of State and having those conversations. I think that's the same thing you'll ultimately see if he does come to the U.S. Senate, and he will very much be a crucial Republican vote in supporting the president's agenda.
Vince, you think that Secretary of State thing was real and not just a kind of a show for the cameras?
Whatever it was, it demonstrated, I think, within Mitt Romney a capacity to sort of reconcile with President Trump. And I think that could happen again. I think he's willing to come to the table on policy. You can't criticize the president of the United States as being insufficient or somehow childish or whatever kind of weird criticism you want to come up with if you're not willing to be adult enough to go along with the policies that you like of his.
Leslie, interesting that Mitt Romney has been, the head of his own firm, Bain Capital. He was a governor. Those are, executive positions. All of a sudden, you're a U.S. senator, and you are one of 100. And I don't know, a lot of these executive types don't find that a very palatable place to be.
Well, John, again, I was just talking about this with my radio crew yesterday. This is a step down. I mean, you were the Republican nominee and you could have been president of the United States. This is, no offense to senators, a step down from where Mitt Romney has been as governor of Massachusetts, the head of his company, and almost a president of the United States. That's why I think he should set his eyes not on the Senate, but on the Oval Office. And I agree with Vince. I think what would happen if he comes into the Senate, he just becomes, another senator, another vote. He doesn't stand out. He's not just a politician, but a politician who wanted the Oval Office, and that's a much larger seat and bigger shoes to fill than the U.S. Senate.
I will say the one thing is the idea that he's stepping down. I don't know. Maybe he's just settling into the role that he's capable of achieving in the federal government. I mean, he ran for president. He got the nomination. He was rejected by the American people, and that a lot of that had to do with him lacking the authenticity that ultimately Donald Trump had. Maybe being the senator from Utah is the place for him to be if he's going to be involved in the federal government at all.
I'm sure the Republican establishment is hanging on Leslie's every word about political advice. So we thank you both for sharing your thoughts today. Leslie and Vince, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.